Hello, welcome back. I'm with George Paspalis, the CEO of MAG Silver. George, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Kick things off for those less familiar. What is the company?
MAG Silver. We've been around since 2003. We IPO'd on a principal property called Juanicipio in Mexico. We came out onto the property, got a drill rig set up, hole number 1, discovery hole into the Juanicipio vein. From then, it's been on the up. We discovered in hole 16 a neighbouring vein called Valdecanes, and that's the essence of the Juanicipio project now, the Valdecanes vein system. It's unique in the sense of it's a fluid upwelling zone. Every geologist wants to find the source. We've found the source here in the preeminent silver district in the world, the Fresnillo Trend. So that's what MAG's principally about. We've taken Juanicipio from hole 1 to a significantly large resource, extraordinarily high grade. Average grade in the bonanza zone is about 600 grams per tonne of silver. We have gold, we have lead, we have zinc, and we have copper. We don't really talk equivalent, we talk grams of silver because it's such a big number. We've now built a 4,000 tonne per day processing facility. I use the royal we. Juanicipio is a joint venture. In 2005, Fresnillo earned in to the Juanicipio property, and so Fresnillo owned 56% and they're the operator. We're obviously 44%, and we fund our 44% of all expenditures on the property. So at the end of last year, we completed construction of that 4,000 tonne per day concentrator, and we were ready to be plugged in to the grid, and we were notified on the 23rd of December by the authorities that they can't do the plug-in, and that'll actually happen in the middle of 2022. Here we are now in November of 2022, and we are getting plugged in, right? People think about the connection like a light switch, flick on. This is a complicated system that goes through a number of substations to the national grid. So that's now commenced, and we're commissioning a lot of the electrical system. And, come the end of November and getting into December, we'll be putting rock through the mill, and we can start to ramp this up. And particularly for our shareholders, it becomes payday.
Good. Before we go into the thick of it, let's just take a step back. What's the corporate structure? How many shares outstanding, cash in the bank, that sort of thing?
We have about 100 million shares, fully diluted. We've been very diligent how we've issued equity. We try to hit 52-week highs. There's no rollback in that. That's a fully diluted number. We have $40 million of cash on the balance sheet in Vancouver. There's about $18 million sitting in the joint venture. Juanicipio has been completely self-funded during 2022 as we've finished capital projects, paid for operating costs, etc. It's tight, right? It's a really tight capital structure. We have 3 assets in the company. Juanicipio, then we have an exploration property in Utah called Deer Trail, and then we have a recent acquisition of another exploration property in Ontario, Canada. So we're easy to get your head around, right? High-grade silver, a couple of really prospective exploration plays, well cashed up, and a nice capital structure.
Good. One other question before we do get into the assets. You're up 30% over the last month. What's been the catalyst for that?
It's hard to say. Even during the course of 2022, our shares have remained quite robust. I can't help but think there's a general sentiment turn in favour of precious metals and perhaps silver in particular. Disclaimer, I'm a little biased, all right? I am a silver bug for what I think are compelling reasons. And I think people know the connection. Getting our plant running is significant. During the course of 2022 and most of 2021, we do have mineralised material coming from underground and being processed through 2 of Fresnillo's processing facilities nearby to us. So we're generating about 25 million a quarter in gross profit just on the side, right? And so that's why I think people are seeing that and they're going, wow, when the real deal starts, right? So why not get in now while the price is where it is, rather than where it may come to as we re-rate as the plant's on, these guys are producing.
No, agreed. Let's actually run through the economics of what this looks like in full-scale production.
Right.
Have you released any guidance in terms of what the all-in sustaining cost might be, what the free cash flow might be, things like price sensitivities as well, based on what different silver prices?
Yep. So we have a technical report on CDAR. It was done in 2017. At that time, the silver price was $17.80. And there's some price sensitivity curves in that report, but needless to say, given the margin of this asset, it's really levered to the silver price. All-in sustaining cash costs were $5 per ounce.
How might that change at the moment? Obviously, that's 2017 price. We've had massive inflation over the last year or so.
Yep.
You must be expecting that to change slightly.
It's got to go up.
Yeah.
One of the advantages of having Fresnillo as the operator is they're a large mining company, multiple assets. They have a lot of commercial clout. And so they negotiate for all the inputs to Juanicipio on behalf of the joint venture. And they get good pricing. So we are seeing price escalation, but it's probably not like other people are seeing by virtue of their size and their ability to negotiate commercially.
Yeah, so I cut you off there, but in terms of the free cash flow and sort of what the post-tax numbers look like, well, could you just tell us a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, we're going to make, in the early years, the production profile will be of the order of 15, 17 million ounces of silver on a 100% basis. You work out your silver price, right? Let's say it's 25. If you've got sustaining costs of 5, you've got a $20 margin on 15 million, you know. We could appreciably be making $120 to $140 million a year of free cash flow to MAG.
Just to MAG?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's an incredible asset.
You were talking about commissioning of power. Obviously, that sounds like it's ongoing at the moment.
Yeah.
Do you have any guidance as to when, I know, like you say, it's not a switch, but say, metaphorically speaking, when that might be switched on, and you were talking about potentially production soon? Yeah,
I think you'll find us starting to put rock through our mills towards the end of this month and definitely ramping up in December. We haven't released guidance. We've talked as partners. We probably will release some production guidance next year. It's a ramp-up year. You want to be careful on how much you release there. But I think it's fair to give investors some idea of what that ramp-up year will look like. We're expecting a reasonably smooth ramp-up because Fresnillo have been processing the same vein since 2008 in the Saucito operation. For the last 2 years, we've been taking material from Valdecañas and sticking it through 2 of their mills. Right? And so we have a good understanding of its metallurgical response. So, you know, we're expecting that we can ramp up relatively quickly.
Was there any difference in metallurgy and processing from the 2 mills that you have been putting in?
There is. There is. So the Saucito plant, which is configured for the same vein processing, is a fine grind, and we're getting, on that plant, we're getting low 90s up to mid 90% recoveries of silver, which is what our expectations are in our plant. On the Fresnillo mine, it's a coarser grind. It's actually been designed for a different vein, which isn't as grind sensitive as Valdecañas. So it's a coarser grind. We lose 10 to 15% recovery through that plant. So what we do is, every month, we bias, preferentially treat the Juanicipio material through the Saucito plant that's got the higher recovery.
Good. Yeah. I just wanted to look at you released a sustainability report recently.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us about what you found there and really what your overall ESG strategy is? Obviously, I understand Fresnillo are operating the mine, but you still went out of your way to do your DD on that as well.
Yeah, that's right. And it's our inaugural sustainability report. I mean, Fresnillo do a good job in terms of ESG components, and our role really is working with them. They are the operator, they're good at what they do, we're there to support. In Deer Trail and Lardo, though, it's ours, right? We're direct drive there. We're pretty proud of the values we have and the way we execute on the ground. So you're going into Deer Trail, we've built great relationships with the communities, regulators. Same thing going into Lardo now. And I think as we develop and get more success at those two properties, there'll be more to talk about in terms of future sustainability reports. But look, we firmly believe, and we've been doing this from day one, is we wear our values on our sleeve, and when we're on the ground, we want to make sure that we're respectful of the environment, respectful of our people, health and safety, respectful of all the communities. ESG scores and ratings, yeah, you have to do that. And we've had a really significant improvement in our ESG score here in the latter part of 2022. But it's more important what you do on the ground and how we're interacting with people and what mark we're leaving on the community. And we want that to be positive and a rewarding experience.
Well, this is actually following on to one of my next questions, was actually on the ground, what is local sentiment like in the Juanicipio area?
Juanicipio, they've been mining silver there for 500 years, right? So the town of Fresnillo and the local communities around the mine are miners, right? Fresnillo are well regarded as employers. For example, with the COVID in 2020 and the Mexican government is struggling to provide masks and things like this. In the state of Zacatecas, Fresnillo stepped up and we purchased and provided a lot of medical support for people that the government couldn't do. Communities appreciate that. Fresnillo do a lot in terms of education and sustainable programs that are separate from the mine. Now, the mine's a long life, but I think for all mining companies, you can fall into a trap of where you set up what you call sustainable programs for communities that are linked to the mine. Mines have finite lives. You need to link to things that are so separate from the mine, and you look at the mine as a window of opportunity to embed those sustainable programs. So people down there see that from Fresnillo, and they're well regarded.
And how well integrated is the workforce with the local community? Do you have a figure of sort of how many locals that are being hired to run this mine or anything along those lines?
The majority of people are local. Now, there are local communities that are very close. There's a lot of employment there. I won't say maximum, but it's close to. Then there's the city of Fresnillo, which is like 8 kilometres away. Most of the people come from there. And then there's some specialist skills, roles, where people live in Zacatecas and come up, which is a 45-minute drive. So it's all relatively local.
And even taking a step back and looking at Mexico as a whole, obviously we had the nationalisation of their lithium industry. Obviously you're completely different with silver, but how have your shareholders and potential investors, what's their view on the governance of Mexico now, and how are you managing that since that's happened?
A lot of our shareholders got spooked when the current president was elected, and there was some changing of balance within the shareholder base of some people just saying we're out of Mexico. So irrespective of the high quality asset, the highest grade silver mine in the world sort of thing, we want out of Mexico. Since then though, the shareholder base has stabilised. I think for us, what's very important is that in Mexico, Fresnillo are the operator. Fresnillo are the face of Juanicipio. I think shareholders are comfortable that they know how to manage in Mexico. And so I don't hear a lot about it.
Good. Okay, let's move on to some of your other assets because they are very exciting too.
Yep.
Let's start off with Deer Trail.
Sure.
Can you just give an update as to where that is at the moment and the work that you're doing there?
Okay, so Deer Trail, we've been on the ground there for 4 years. We spent 2 years ensuring we embedded the right sort of culture and relationships with communities, regulators, etc. We then rolled it out to the investment community 2 years ago. We were drill ready. We had a drill permit, we started drilling, and last year we released our results from phase 1 of drilling. 3 holes intercepted mineralisation, almost a kilo of silver over 2 metres, nice. We think this is a big system. And so we're currently treating a lot of that mineralisation we see as feeder structures, and we want to track them back to where did they come from, because we think there's a lot larger mineralisation to be found, which we would then announce as a discovery and mineable and resources and that sort of stuff.
And
so
is that work ongoing at the moment? Are you,
Yep.
you doing that step out and trying to...
Yep, so we're in phase 2 of drilling, and we hope to be able to release the results of phase 2 soon. And we're down to 7 holes now, and we like what we see.
What sort of depths are we looking at here?
We're going deep. We're drilling from surface, and we're going down to 1.2, 1.4 kilometres. Yep. We have a 2 kilometre adit in the side of the mountain. I think ultimately we'll be doing a lot more of the infill drilling from underground, but at the moment we're drilling from surface, so they're long holes. They're difficult holes to drill. The ground's difficult. We have to cross a major fault, which is where probably the mineralisation came from, and that can be challenging.
Okay. And then taking a step and a look at your Ontario asset, this is a bit newer, so maybe you can give us a little bit of an overview of that one too.
Sure. So it's the third leg on the stool. The stool is location, location, location. Juanicipio in Mexico, preeminent silver district in the world. Deer Trail in Utah sits on the Bingham Trend. This is elephant country, and we hope to find an elephant there. Larder sits on the Larder Cadillac Break in the Abitibi. Again, extraordinarily productive historical gold production zone, and we have about a 7 kilometre strike length on the Larder, and we're into phase 1 of drilling now. We've kept a really competent small geological team from the acquisition there. I think we're on hole 4 now. We'll probably release our results from our phase 1 drilling at Larder in the first quarter of next year. Communities welcoming there. Again, we wear our values here. We go out there and be very respectful and be very cognizant of how we interact with people. It's going well.
Good. And looking at, I guess, the overall bigger picture here, obviously you've got the JV with Fresnillo on Juanicipio. The other 2 assets, what's the strategy? Is it to obviously do the drilling, shore up a resource, find something of size? Do you ever want to become the sole operators of a mine, or is the idea to find other partners suitable for those regions to...
Okay, yeah, good question. We're flexible on either there. One of the, I think what makes MAG special is having Juanicipio and the ability to generate robust cash flow, which can reward your long-standing shareholders because we have good shareholders who have been with us for a long time, but also provide the funding required to do the drilling on those 2 properties. As we get to understanding the geological potential, maybe the first resource modelling that we do, we'll start to think about strategic decisions. Is this where MAG takes a turn or a fork in the road and maybe become our own operator? Or do we stay as a partner with a very credible operating team and have 9 or 10 people in the company and a couple of operating mines, right?
Keep costs low, yeah.
Yeah, so Hollywood problems to have.
Oh, absolutely. Let's look back over the last 12 months. What you as a CEO, what are you most proud of?
I think being able to work closely with Fresnillo in the joint venture, and we have a very collaborative relationship now. There's good idea sharing, information sharing, almost fun working together. I think that's important. Certainly the way we've come on the ground in Deer Trail, and we're now replicating that with Larder, I think we're well respected. We treat people properly, communities, regulators see that. So we're executing well. I like the way that's really come together. Our inaugural sustainability report was massive work for our team Sustain, our CSO, and Melanie, our CSR lady. But it was a great outcome, and it's given us a platform now to build on. And I'm not a score chaser, but getting a much higher Sustainalytics ranking just makes it easier for people who want to invest in us to have a good reason to invest in us.
No, it ticks that box. Okay, lastly, you've mentioned some of this already, but you've got sounds like a pretty big 12 months ahead of you. What can we expect? When can we expect it?
Well, as I said, by the end of this year, we should have some significant tonnes through the Juanicipio plant. Leading into next year, a declaration of commercial production. I think that'll be like the crowning glory. We're finally there, right? I think that'll be important for the share price and for shareholders, because I think that then, okay, this is re-rate time, right? This is in operation. I think ongoing updates on the drilling at Deer Trail and Larder. I hope that leads to discovery. And then maybe not next year, maybe years after, resource generation and being able to give people an understanding of the context of these properties. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of catalysts coming up here.
I agree. George, thank you for your time.
Pleasure, thank you.